When Lauren and I first bought our house in the Denver suburbs, it felt like we'd made it. The kind of made it you don't brag about but quietly hold onto like a win you don't want to jinx. We'd worked hard, scrimped and saved, fought over flooring samples and backsplash colors. But when we moved in and hung the first photo of us and Jake on the hallway wall, it felt real. Solid. Ours. It was a 3-bedroom on a quiet street with maple trees lining both sides and neighbors who waved but never lingered. We called it our forever house, even though, deep down, forever always felt like a dare. She was working long hours at an architecture firm downtown, and I was managing a small IT team for a healthcare company. The usual suburban rhythm: daycare drop-offs, grocery runs, Netflix at night. We weren't flashy, but we were steady. That was something, right? Still, things had been shifting lately. Subtle, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. Lauren was more distracted at dinner. She stopped finishing her tea in the mornings, something she'd always done with a sort of ritual, one leg tucked under her on the kitchen stool. She used to text me during the day, little things like, "This meeting is soul murder," or "Guess what Jake said." But those messages had thinned out. At first, I told myself it was just work stress. Life stress. Marriage stress. You learn to rationalize when you love someone. Then came that Tuesday. I remember it clearly, not just because of what happened, but because of how normal the day had started. I had back-to-back meetings. Lauren kissed me on the cheek before she left, distracted and already juggling her phone and coffee. Jake spilled cereal on the dog and laughed so hard he fell off his chair. Nothing about that morning suggested anything was wrong. I was supposed to work late that evening. A software update had gone sideways, and I was staying to help the new guy troubleshoot. But just before 5, I realized I'd left my personal laptop at home, and I needed it for a freelance gig I'd picked up. So I headed home, figuring I'd grab the laptop and head back. The sun was setting as I pulled into the driveway. The lights inside were already on. I remember thinking it was odd. Lauren usually texted if she was getting home early. Jake was at his friend Leo's for a sleepover, so the house should have been empty. The door was unlocked. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe she'd just forgotten. It's not like we live in a high-crime neighborhood. But when I stepped inside, I heard voices. Not laughter, not an argument, just that low, intimate murmur people use when they think no one else is listening. I walked into the living room, and that's when I saw them. Lauren and a man I didn't recognize, sitting on the couch. Her legs crossed toward him, angled in that unconscious way people do when they're drawn to someone. He was leaning in, not speaking, just listening, his hand casually resting on her leg. Right above the knee. The kind of touch that has history behind it. Or desire. Maybe both. My stomach dropped. You know the feeling when your brain starts arguing with your eyes? Like some part of you starts bargaining instantly. Maybe it's innocent. Maybe I misread it. Maybe this is nothing. But that hand didn't move. It didn't need to move. Its message was clear. Lauren saw me first. Her eyes widened for a half-second, just enough to register surprise. Then, like flipping a switch, she stood up, smooth as ever. "Hey," she said, that lightness in her voice I hadn't heard in weeks. "You're home early." Tom, he introduced himself later, when I asked, looked like he'd been caught stealing from a donation jar. He stood awkwardly brushing his pants like that would erase what just happened. He just stopped by to go over a project. Lauren continued, smiling. "You know, the community center proposal I mentioned? We've got a brutal deadline." She said it like she was letting me in on something casual, something professional. Like his hand hadn't been on her leg. Tom gave a quick, "Nice to meet you," and then he was out the door. Didn't even wait for Lauren to walk him out. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stood there, trying to slow my heartbeat, trying to make sense of what I just walked in on. "You okay?" Lauren asked, walking toward me with that composed expression she wore when she was dealing with difficult clients. The kind where every emotion was filed neatly behind her eyes. "Did I interrupt something?" I asked, my voice low even. She laughed, not a real laugh, more like the kind people do when they're trying to soften the tension. "Don't be weird. We were literally talking about a zoning issue." "I saw his hand," I said. She tilted her head like she hadn't heard me. "What?" "His hand. On your leg." Her smile faded just a little. "Oh. That? It was nothing. He's just touchy. You know how some people are." "No, I don't," I said, not moving. "Do you?" She blinked, then turned away, walking to the kitchen like that ended the conversation. I stood in the living room for a while, staring at the couch. At the spot where they'd been sitting. At the indentation in the cushion that hadn't yet bounced back. I should have pressed harder. Demanded an answer. But the thing is, when you love someone, your first instinct isn't to burn it all down, it's to save it. Even if it's just the illusion of what you thought you had. That night, she acted like everything was fine. We ate dinner, takeout sushi she said she ordered before I came home. She asked how my day was. She even curled up next to me on the couch while we watched a rerun of The Office. But all I could think about was his hand. And the way she didn't flinch when it was there. After that night, something shifted in me. Not just in my mind, but in my body. I could feel the suspicion like a low electrical current buzzing beneath my skin. It didn't matter what Lauren said, how normal she acted, or how much she smiled, something inside me had been rewired. I started watching her differently. Not in the jealous, controlling sense, but in the way someone watches for a crack in the ceiling after they see the first leak. You don't want to find more damage. But once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. You look for it. Constantly. The first thing I noticed was her phone. She used to leave it on the counter, sometimes even forgot it in the bathroom. Now it was always on her. Always face down. Always locked. One night, we were brushing our teeth and her phone buzzed on the sink. I glanced at the screen instinctively, no name, just message received. She snatched it up like it was a live grenade. Work stuff, she mumbled, not meeting my eyes. At first, I brushed it off. But then it kept happening. Always work stuff. Always vague. Always secretive. Another night, she took a call in the backyard. I watched from the window. She paced in small circles, her free hand in her hair, the way she gets when she's trying to say something without saying it. When she came back inside, I asked who it was. Just Tom, she said. We're finalizing the renderings for the new client. I told you that. I hadn't asked about the who, not really. But she offered his name so quickly it felt rehearsed. Like she had it loaded, ready to fire. We used to talk about everything. Now, it was like every question made her flinch. I'd ask how her day was and she'd deflect. Busy. Fine. Same old. That was her favorite, same old. But it wasn't the same. Not even close. She stopped leaving her laptop open. That thing used to live on the dining room table, screensaver flashing photos of our vacations, New York, Portland, that weekend in Estes Park. Now it was always closed, password protected, taken into the bedroom when she worked late. And she always worked late now. Some nights she'd say she was going out just to get some air. It sounded innocent enough the first time. But when it became a habit, leaving after dinner, sometimes with makeup reapplied and a change of clothes, because the office was freezing, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I'd ask, where are you going? And she'd sigh, like the question itself was exhausting. I just need space. I've been overwhelmed, okay? Overwhelmed. She used that word a lot. It used to mean something real, like when she was pulling triple shifts during the redevelopment project in 5 Points. But now it was her shield. Her catch-all. And I was the storm she was shielding herself from. One night, I asked her point-blank if something was going on. We were sitting in the kitchen. She was scrolling on her phone, her thumb flying across the screen. I didn't even know what app she was using anymore. Lauren, I said, can I ask you something and will you actually answer me? She looked up, eyes tired. Sure. Is there something going on between you and Tom? She blinked. What? No. Why would you even say that? Because? I don't know. That night? The way you two looked when I walked in. The phone calls. You're distant. You don't talk to me anymore. She set the phone down, folded her arms. You're being paranoid. I'm being observant. She stared at me for a beat too long. Then she stood up. I don't have to explain every text, every call, every time I need space. You think I'm doing something wrong every time I leave the room? No, I said quietly. Just when you stop treating me like your husband. That got her. She didn't yell. Didn't cry. Just walked out of the kitchen. And that's what scared me the most. She didn't even try to convince me I was wrong. From then on, the tension became part of the furniture. I'd be in the living room watching TV, and she'd be in the dining room with her laptop, headphones on, face lit by the blue glow of a Zoom call, sometimes at 10 p.m. Calls that went silent when I walked by. Sometimes she'd laugh. That soft, breathy laugh I used to love. I hadn't heard it in forever. And suddenly she was giving it to her laptop screen. And when I'd ask, what's funny? She'd blink and say, nothing. Just something stupid from work. Then she'd get quiet. Like the moment had died and I killed it just by asking. On a Sunday, I walked into her closet and saw her packing a small overnight bag. Just a couple things, sweatpants, her moisturizer, a book. Nothing dramatic. Going somewhere? I asked. She didn't look up. I'm staying at Jen's tonight. I need a break. Just a night. I nodded. Didn't say anything. But inside I felt something tighten like the last knot in a rope that's been slowly fraying. She stayed out the whole next day too. Came home late Monday night. No details. No apology. That was the new Lauren, always tired, always overwhelmed, always somewhere else. I started to realize that while I was still trying to hold on to the marriage, she was already living outside of it. Her world had shifted and I wasn't invited. I started going to bed without her, making coffee in the morning without expecting her to join me. We became like two strangers co-renting a house, passing each other with tired smiles and practiced small talk. And yet I still hoped. That's the cruel part. The hope. It doesn't die when it should. It lingers like smoke after a fire, clinging to your clothes, your lungs, your memory. It whispers, maybe it's just stress. Maybe it's just a phase. Maybe she'll come back. But the truth is, she was already gone. And I was the only one pretending otherwise. They say the truth sets you free, but they don't tell you how hard it hits when it shows up uninvited. I wasn't snooping. That's the first thing I told myself. I didn't go looking for evidence. I wasn't playing detective. I wasn't some paranoid husband rifling through drawers or scrolling through her messages behind her back. I was just trying to take out the trash. It was a Thursday night. Cold. One of those evenings where everything feels heavier than it should. I was already in a mood. Lauren had gone out again for a drive and the silence in the house had started to feel like it was mocking me. So I grabbed the kitchen bag and reached for her jacket, the one she always tossed over the dining room chair. Mine was upstairs. I figured I'd be out and back in 2 minutes. That's when it happened. The receipt. It fluttered to the ground as I pulled the jacket off the chair. One of those long, thermal paper slips with the kind of fading ink you only see from gas stations, pharmacies, or motels. I stood there, staring at it like it was radioactive. At first, my brain tried to rationalize it. Maybe it's old. Maybe it's from a work trip. Maybe she picked it up by mistake. But the logo at the top made my stomach drop. I knew the name, the Marwood, 20 minutes from our house. A place that billed itself as quaint but had hourly rates and flickering neon signs. Not exactly a business hotel. Not exactly a spa retreat. And then came the detail that killed any doubt, 2 guests. A room billed for 2. On a Wednesday. My heart pounded. I felt dizzy like the floor had tilted under me. I read it again. And again. The date matched the night she'd said she was a Jen's. The same night she came home late, face flushed, eyes glazed over like she'd been out in the cold too long or like she'd just come back from somewhere she shouldn't have been. She hadn't even tried to hide it. That was the part that stuck with me. The receipt wasn't locked away in a drawer. Wasn't stuffed in her purse. It was just sitting there in the pocket of her jacket. As if it didn't matter. As if I'd never notice. As if I didn't matter. I walked into the living room and sat on the edge of the couch, still holding the paper in my hand. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, staring at the thing like it would morph into something else if I looked long enough. Like it would offer me another interpretation, a better one, a cleaner one. But it didn't. When Lauren came home, the door clicked open like any other night. She was humming softly, keys jangling in her hand, acting like this was just another ordinary evening. Then she saw me. She paused in the doorway, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Hey," she said. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" I didn't answer. I just held up the receipt. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she let out a slow breath, dropped her keys in the bowl by the door, and said, "It's not what you think. Not what I think." I laughed, a bitter, cracked sound I didn't recognize coming out of my own mouth. "Please," I said. "Don't insult both of us." She walked over and sat on the armrest of the couch, careful to keep space between us. "You've been distant," she said softly. "For a long time. So you booked a motel?" "I needed warmth," she replied. As if that explained it. Warmth. Like I was a broken furnace. Like this was a technical malfunction. I stared at her, waiting for something. Remorse, panic, even a tear. But she just sat there, calm, composed. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she continued. "It just did." "Was it Tom?" I asked. But I already knew the answer. She looked away. That was confirmation enough. I stood up, walked to the kitchen. I needed space between us. I needed to not breathe the same air. She followed me in. "Please don't blow this up," she said behind me. "It's already hard enough." I turned, and my voice came out cold. "Hard enough for who? You cheated on me, Lauren. You lied to me, and you didn't even have the decency to hide it properly." She winced but said nothing. "So what now?" I asked. "You get to play the victim? I'm supposed to... what? Understand? Forgive you?" "I don't know," she whispered. "I just know I can't go on pretending. And neither can you." She was right about one thing. I had been pretending. For weeks, maybe months. Pretending we were still us. Pretending the distance wasn't growing wider. Pretending her silence didn't mean something. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab the framed photos off the walls and throw them into the backyard and set fire to every memory we'd ever made. But I didn't. Instead, I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw someone I no longer recognized. Same face, same voice, but everything else? Foreign. You threw it away, I said finally. She nodded. Just once. There were no fights that night. No slammed doors. No big climax. Just a cold, hollow silence that filled every corner of the house. We went to bed in separate rooms. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how you fall out of someone's life while still brushing your teeth in the same sink, still drinking coffee from the same mugs, still sleeping under the same roof. The answer? Slowly. And then all at once. It wasn't the kind of departure you brace for. No storm. No explosion. No slammed doors or shouted names. Just a quiet unraveling. A silent surrender. A week after the receipt, she started packing. She didn't make a big show of it. No suitcase in the middle of the room. No announcement. Just one drawer at a time, slow and methodical. A sweater here, a stack of jeans there. Like she was doing spring cleaning. Like leaving was just another thing on her to-do list. I walked into our bedroom one afternoon and saw her folding Jake's clothes into a duffel. I didn't say anything at first. I just stood in the doorway, watching. "Where are you going?" I finally asked. She didn't turn around. "To my sister's. Just for a little while. I need space." "You're taking Jake." She nodded. That was the part that broke me. I knew things between us were damaged. Maybe beyond repair. But Jake, he was still my anchor. My routine. My little buddy who clung to me like a shadow every Saturday morning during pancakes and cartoons. And now, even that was being pulled from under me. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just sat down on the edge of the bed and watched her zip the bag shut. "I'll bring him by next weekend," she offered, without looking up. "If you want. If I want." As if that wasn't the only thing I wanted. As if I wouldn't carve open my chest and hand her my heart just to hear him laugh down the hallway one more time. She finished packing and stood near the doorway, shifting her weight like she was waiting for permission to leave. She looked at me then. Not with anger, not even with guilt. Just resolution. Like the decision had been made days ago. Weeks, maybe. And now she was simply following through. "I never meant for it to go this far," she said quietly. "But we both know we weren't happy. We could have tried," I said. She shook her head. "We did." I wanted to argue, to list all the things we hadn't done, therapy, counseling, anything, but I could see it in her eyes. She was already gone. The Lauren I knew had stepped off the edge a long time ago. This version, standing in front of me, was someone new. Someone with a different direction. One that didn't include me. She hugged Jake before they left. Told him to say goodbye to Daddy. He wrapped his arms around me tight. Too tight for a 5-year-old, and I swallowed the lump in my throat as I kissed the top of his head. "Love you, little man," I whispered. "So much." "I love you too," he said, not fully understanding what was happening. Not really. Just sensing it the way kids do. Lauren didn't cry. She didn't linger. She walked to the front door with Jake's small hand in hers, opened it, and paused only briefly before stepping out. No final words. No backward glance. Just the soft click of the door closing behind her. And then there was silence. The kind that doesn't just fill a room, it fills your chest, your lungs, your brain. I sat on the living room couch and listened to the absence. No toy sounds. No background music. No clatter from the kitchen. Just me and the dull hum of the refrigerator. Like it was the only thing left still working in this house. For the first few days, I tried to keep it together. Told myself it was temporary. She just needed space. People did this sometimes. Breaks. Breathing room. Right? But I knew. I knew the way she packed. I knew the way she said goodbye. This wasn't a break. This was an exit. I texted her that night just to check on Jake. She responded 4 hours later, "He's good. Sleeping now. No, thanks for asking. No, he misses you. Just the facts." A sterile update. I sent another message the next day. asking if I could FaceTime with him. No reply. I called voicemail. The next morning I got an email. Not from her. From a law firm. Subject line: initial proposal for asset division. No greeting. No context. Just a cold list of numbers, terms, and lines of legal jargon. It was so sudden, so transactional. It took me a minute to realize what I was looking at. She hadn't just packed. She'd filed. No conversation. No warning. No, we need to talk. Just a form in my inbox, stripping our life into columns and categories. House, car, joint account, custody schedule. I stared at the screen, trying to process how we'd gone from birthday cupcakes and shared Amazon passwords to bullet points and legal headers. I called her. No answer. I tried again. Straight to voicemail. It felt like being fired from a job I didn't know I'd lost. Like she'd been holding meetings about it behind closed doors, and I was just now being looped in. I forwarded the email to a lawyer I found through a friend. Someone who specialized in quiet divorces. Whatever that meant. By the end of the week, I had an appointment booked, a file started, and a pit in my stomach that wouldn't go away. I started noticing things around the house. Little gaps. A pair of her shoes missing from the rack. Her favorite coffee mug gone. A picture frame removed from the hallway wall. The space where it used to hang now marked by a faint outline in the paint. All these small disappearances. Like she was slowly erasing herself from our life. From my life. I tried calling Jake again on Saturday. She finally picked up. "Hey," she said. "Can I talk to him? He's taking a nap. Lauren, I haven't seen him in 6 days." "I know," she said. "I'm sorry. It's just been a lot. When can I see him? I'll let you know." And then the line went dead. Just like that. I stared at my phone, the silence buzzing in my ear, and for the first time in weeks, I let myself fall apart. I sank to the floor of the hallway, right next to the empty space where our family photo used to hang, and I cried. Not just for the betrayal. Not just for the marriage, but for the simple, crushing realization that I wasn't part of her world anymore. And she had no intention of bringing me back into it. It's a strange thing how silence can stretch across days, then weeks, then whole seasons, until one day you look back and realize 2 years have passed. Not with fireworks or a calendar circle, but quietly, like watching a house slowly rot from the foundation, and only noticing when it finally caves in. 2 years. That's how long it's been since I last saw Lauren face to face. Since I heard Jake call me Dad and felt his hand wrap around mine. The silence didn't start loud. It started with missed calls, then messages left on read, then nothing at all. A clean break, except it wasn't clean. It was jagged, unfinished, full of sharp edges I kept walking into every time I let myself hope. The court order gave me visitation rights. Every other weekend, alternating holidays. On paper, it looked fair. But real life doesn't care much for court orders. Lauren made excuses. Jake was sick. They were out of town. He had a school project due. I tried pushing back at first, but when every attempt became another argument, I started to wonder if I was making things worse for him. So I stopped fighting. Not because I stopped caring, but because I didn't want Jake to grow up hearing my name only in the context of conflict. I didn't want to be the reason he felt torn between two people who used to love each other. I wrote letters instead. One every month like clockwork. Sometimes longer ones on birthdays. I included little drawings he used to like. Pictures of the dog he used to cuddle with. I never knew if he got them. Lauren never replied. I kept sending them anyway. I left gifts on the doorstep during the holidays. A model rocket. A new soccer ball. A Lego set. Never wrapped too elaborately. Just enough to say I'm still here. Sometimes I'd park across the street and wait to see the porch light flick on, hoping to catch a glimpse of him through the blinds. I knew how that sounded. I hated how that sounded. But when your kid vanishes from your life, you do strange things to feel close again. There were nights I convinced myself I saw him, just a blur through the window, a shadow that might have been his. I'd replay it in my head, trying to decide if it was real or just something my heart invented. Friends tried to help. Some told me to move on, to let go, to stop living in a past that clearly didn't want me back. Others urged me to take legal action, to fight harder, louder, more publicly. But none of them knew the Lauren I did, the way she could manipulate a narrative, the way she could twist even the purest intentions into something suspect. So I did what I knew how to do, survive. I threw myself into work, picked up more hours, started running again. I even dated a little. Nothing serious, nothing lasting. Because no matter how many dinners I sat through or drinks I bought, no one else had Jake's laugh or Lauren's ability to ruin me with a single look. I kept the house. I thought about selling it more than once, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Not yet. There were too many echoes there. Too many ghosts that hadn't decided if they were staying or not. The walls still held our faded crayon art in the playroom, pencil marks on the doorframe where we used to track Jake's height. I couldn't scrub that away. Not until I knew what it all meant. Then came the photo. It was a Tuesday. Ordinary. I was at work, half buried in ticket requests and bug reports. My phone buzzed, a text from a number I didn't recognize. No message. Just an image. A wedding venue. White chairs lined up on green grass. Rose petals scattered down the aisle. In the foreground, a bride, face turned, profile half hidden by a veil, but I knew that silhouette. I'd know it anywhere. Lauren. And beside her, in a tailored gray suit, standing just a little too proud, was Tom. There was a caption underneath, from the sender, "Didn't know you knew her." I stared at the photo for a long time. Not because I didn't believe it, but because some part of me already had. This was just the confirmation. I didn't respond. I didn't ask who sent it. I just got in my car and drove. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to ruin it. Maybe I wanted closure. Maybe I just wanted to see Jake, to see if he still remembered my face. I didn't even check the address. I remembered the venue. She'd mentioned it years ago, back when we were still happy. If we ever renew our vows, this is the spot, she'd said. Guess she kept the dream. Just changed the cast. I parked far from the crowd and walked up the hill alone. The ceremony had just started. Music playing, people turning toward the aisle. And then I saw her. Lauren. Flawless. Timeless. Like the last 2 years hadn't left a single mark on her. I expected hate to rise in me, but it didn't. Just a deep, cold ache. Like walking barefoot into snow and standing there too long. She turned. Saw me. And for the first time since that night on the couch, I saw her mask slip. Only for a second. But it was enough. Shock. Regret. Maybe even fear. Next to her stood Tom, still with that polished, too smooth confidence I never trusted. His hand resting on her back like he owned the moment. And then I saw Jake. Standing off to the side in a tiny suit, looking older than I remembered but still unmistakably him. He saw me too. And he froze. Like something clicked in his brain, some memory, some echo. Like the weight of everything he'd been told suddenly didn't line up with what was right in front of him. He didn't run. He didn't smile. But his eyes locked onto mine like he had something to ask. Something only I could answer. I didn't move. Neither did he. For a few seconds it was like the entire wedding faded, the music, the crowd, the vows. There was just the space between us. Silent. Heavy. Lauren stepped forward, just barely, as if to say something. But she didn't. And I realized then this wasn't her moment anymore. It was his. Jake didn't look to her for permission. He didn't speak. But in his stillness, in his expression, I saw the first crack in whatever story she'd been feeding him. The first sign that maybe, just maybe, he was starting to remember me for himself. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. Jake just stood there, shoulders squared, eyes locked on mine, as if the last 2 years had collapsed into this one impossible moment. I didn't expect him to run to me. I wasn't even sure he'd recognize me. But he did. And in that split second, everything else disappeared. The white chairs. The string quartet. The officiant clearing his throat. Just me. And my son. I didn't move. I was afraid if I did, the moment would vanish, like a dream unraveling the second you try to hold onto it. Lauren noticed. Of course she did. She followed his gaze. And for the first time since the day she walked out, I saw something in her eyes that wasn't anger or distance or dismissal. It was panic. Brief, unfiltered panic. Like seeing a ghost walk into your wedding. She took a step forward, her hand reaching out instinctively. Jake, she whispered. But he didn't look at her. Not yet. His eyes were still on me. Not wide with confusion or fear, but something quieter. Something older. Like a memory rising up after being buried too long. I gave him a nod, just a small one. No pressure. No expectation. And that's when he did something I hadn't seen in over 700 days. He smiled. It wasn't big. It wasn't flashy. But it was real. A crooked little thing that tugged at one corner of his mouth, the same way he used to smile when I tickled him behind the knees or snuck him an extra cookie before dinner. And in that moment, I knew. I hadn't lost him completely. Tom looked between the two of us, clearly uncomfortable, like someone realizing too late that they'd walked into the middle of someone else's story. He leaned toward Lauren, whispering something. Her jaw tightened. She didn't answer. I don't think she knew what to say. The officiant tried to regain control, clearing his throat again. If we could all take our seats. No one moved. Eyes were on me now. Some curious. Some annoyed. Some wide with realization. I didn't belong there. Not officially. But emotionally? Spiritually? That was another story. I took a step back. Then another. Slowly, carefully, like I was lowering the volume on a scene I was no longer part of. Jake followed me with his eyes the entire time. Didn't flinch. Didn't turn away. And right before I reached the edge of the lawn, I raised my hand, a half a wave, half a promise. He raised his back. Not as high, but high enough. It was enough. I left without saying a word. No grand gesture. No disruption. No confrontation. Just a silent exchange between a father and a son who had somehow found each other again through the cracks of everything broken. When I got back in the car, I sat for a long time without starting the engine. I thought I'd feel angry. Hollow. Like I had at the beginning. But I didn't. I felt, still, not at peace. Not yet. But not drowning anymore either. That moment with Jake, it didn't fix everything. It didn't erase what had been done or what had been lost. But it reminded me that some things, no matter how far gone they feel, don't disappear. They wait. Quietly. Patiently. Until the right moment finds them again. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if Lauren will let him call me or if I'll get to explain myself someday, not through filtered stories or legal channels, but in my own words. But I do know one thing. He saw me. And he remembered. And that was enough to start with.